Excuse the abrupt music ending. Welcome back to the broadcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. Honor to be with you tonight. And thank you so much, brother. God bless you and happy Father's Day to you as well. And what a wonderful Monday that we can get to look at all of the things that we've got going on. Because as you know, we've been sort of periodically going live. And work has just been super crazy. You know, family stuff, all that. We all have responsibilities. And I am so grateful, for one, to have this audience that I do. No matter the fact that YouTube brings it down, you know, viewers come in and out. And I'm just highly blessed nonetheless. And it's amazing when we see all of what God has done in this on this show. Now, as I said before, honored to be with you tonight. Email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. When we look at the trajectory of New York and how far it has fallen, we are reminded of 9/11 and this tragedy that seems to be erased by Congresswoman, more specifically Ilhan Omar, who said that a particular set of people did something on this day, and you know they did something. That's merely all it was. It wasn't, there was no clarity. There was no emphasis on how tragic something like this event was. And so Ilhan Omar just basically said, some people did something, and that's about it. That's as far as she went. To the election of Zoran Mamdani, the socialist mayor, democratic socialist, I might add, but really he's a socialist. Maybe we can even just call him a communist. They are on the hunt to destroy this state even further. What once was known as the Great New York City is no longer what it used to be, especially what it was portrayed as in Hollywood. Places like the Friends TV hit series, where we witnessed friends who lived in New York, worked in New York, and made socialized in this city that seemed to have really captured the hearts and the minds of people because of the fantasy that Hollywood made it out to be. Same thing with LA. You see these picture perfect scenarios of what New York should look like, yet there's a deeper, more tragic series of images that we get from how New York actually is. And so if we just go for a moment to look at how tragic New York has become, we can see many videos and, videos and photos. I think I said VOs. I'm not even sure what I said, of what happened during the Knicks game, just simply a Knicks game, and the type of, out of hand celebration after the NBA Finals. And so the lack of control within New York, you have chaos under Zoran Mamdani. This shouldn't happen, yet it does. This is lawlessness. For what? Somebody winning the NBA Finals? And this is what it comes to? You have buses burning. And for the people who work, taxi drivers, bus drivers, how do people expect to support Zoran Mamdani even further when this is simply how people can't contain themselves after an NBA Finals? And there's more footage here. I'm just kind of getting to some of the video footage. This is a cab driver who is kids dancing on his car. This is his only, probably his only source of income. Maybe, we don't know exactly his backstory, but he has to just surrender his livelihood to a group of degenerates who simply don't care about the fact this is how this man makes his living. And these are the people that Zoran Mamdani supposedly strives to protect. When we know that's a false reality, and what he claims to attempt to make New York this great state. And so you have politics, like you mentioned. That's what happens when you defund the police. We have, this is where we get into the story of a Mamdani-backed House hopeful, Darilaz, I don't even know how to pronounce it, Daria Liza Avila Chevalier. Okay, she was open on X about certain comments she's made concerning the police, comments she's made about the former vice president, which we have our issues with the Biden administration, but she openly is she's going even further than the left. But she's saying, and what she's talked about, abolishing police, prisons, and borders. She supported abolish the police. And she's quoted by saying no more police at all, ever. A world without borders. These are direct quotes from her X account, which people went back and actually, seen these archives by the Wayback Machine and many other ways that people were able to capture these. Of course, CNN doing reporting on this, which is actually kind of fascinating that they're even doing this, but seeing that they're now under new leadership, new management. A world without borders, just like a world without police or prisons, is possible, necessary, and the only moral way forward. She says, yes, literally abolish the border. And she's also said all deportation is wrong. She's also called the U.S. a effing disgrace. She's criticized service members, U.S. service members, mocking war crimes or veterans. She called Biden a rapist, a war criminal. She said F Kamala Harris. She's also supported ideas like seizing private property, just like Sia Weaver, who we've seen Mamdani actually put in place, which we're going to be looking at a couple of clips of her. Seizing private property, landlord assets, nationalizing industries by seizing the means of production, right? And other socialist, communist-leaning views. She has since went on during a debate to apologize for these tweets that were recently, of course, anytime you're running for some type of office, you have the Democrats who continually, especially with that guy who's running in, I think, Georgia. I forget his name. It might be Georgia. I don't really remember. Somebody help me out here. The guy with the Nazi tattoo. I believe it is. See if I can even. Plattner. There you go. Graham Plattner. The people that the Democratic Party seek to elevate within their own party, well, this is their best. And so she's going on apologizing for these nasty tweets that she's posted, saying that she's, she deeply regrets it. She regrets her tweets on a Tuesday night debate. She says, this is me taking accountability. That's what she says. She was forced to address an old X post in which she said, F Kamala Harris. The 13th congressional district that Chevalier is vying to represent includes neighborhoods such as Morningside Heights, Harlem, Washington Heights, and portions of the Bronx with significant Black, Latino, and liberal voters who supported Democrat Harris bid for the White House. And so you have Mamdani, as we mentioned before, who is backing her as a candidate for the 13th congressional district. Let's play tape of what is being shared regarding these details and how she goes on to talk about abolishing prisons, saying that this is the only moral way forward. I'm guaranteeing you that these are still the same positions she has. I don't think anything has changed. Of course, she's going to have to present herself as moderate. We've seen this game plan of what the Democrats are doing. You can look at Virginia, for example. What was seemingly looking like a moderate, center-moderate sort of Democrat candidate, we see what happened immediately after she was elected. That is the Governor Abigail Spanberger. Let's take a look.
Hey, Griff, good morning to you. It is not going to surprise anybody these days, but New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani is standing firmly by the side of a fellow Democratic socialist running for Congress in New York. And this is a person who has said a lot of things that raise a whole lot of eyebrows and has basically taken about as far left positions as you can get. So we'll get into her. Her name is Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier. She's running for Congress in New York's 13th district. She has said a number of things in now deleted posts between 2018 and 2022 on social media, including that she wants to abolish borders, abolish prisons, and police is abolishing all those things is, quote, possible, necessary, and the only moral way forward. She has also said that all deportation is wrong and, quote, yes, literally abolish the border. She's also made some anti-American comments saying, quote, this country is a effing disgrace. In another post, she also added, quote, I forgot to get napkins, so I just wiped my hand on the American flag behind me in yet another post. Now, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders were both campaigning for Chevalier in New York on Thursday.
And that, my friends, is why we need to elect Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier. Daria is exactly who the people of the Bronx and Upper Manhattan deserve representing them in Congress.
The next 4 days, everybody here and everybody in the city has got to work hard to make sure that Brad and Claire and Daria Lisa become the next congresspeople for New York City.
Now, we have to remember that you make a great point, James. You say Obama said who he is when he said regular people don't know how to run their lives and need to give up their rights to a higher power that's been working on this for a long time. So I think you go back to a moment during the 2023, 2024 elections, the election year that was soon approaching, where Donald Trump would be indicted during the summer of indictments, of what we saw from Big Fannie Willis and some of the others, because of, we have Alvin Bragg, we have, of course, the allegations that were being made against Donald Trump, this idea that they will seek to, because you saw op-eds being ran by the New York or the Washington Post, and you had even Axios reporting. They're talking about, I believe it was Axios, they're talking about removing elections or stopping elections in total, saying Americans vote too much. They were on their way of seeking how they can remove the election process and just go by, well, we'll just randomly select the next leader of America. I mean, these third world ideas, well, they fail, especially in a Republican form of government. But Manhattan median rents hit record high with nearly 10% increase over a year when Mamdani promised that things were going to become affordable. And so he said, well, let's put grocery stores, let's make city-wide free grocery stores, free buses, free childcare, free. This is what our democracy demands. When every time you hear democracy, when the Democrats use democracy, you just replace that word with oligarchy. It's simple as that. Just think, democracy, no, they're saying our oligarchy. And so these are rising rents in New York City under Zoran Mamdani.
I want to get a sharp opinion out of you today, Mike. So what do you think about this?
We haven't had one yet.
I'm undecided.
Median Manhattan rent has hit a new record high at just over $5,000 a month, up 7% from last year. So I don't know, maybe demonizing landlords is not a cure-all.
So according to the New York Post, it says the increase was part of a trend that's been creeping steadily upward. Median Manhattan rents rose 1% from April to June. So we have a total now, nearly 10% increase over a year. And of course, Zoran Mamdani, who's just 6 months into office, yet we haven't seen any relief for New Yorkers. Of course, we weren't going to see any relief for New Yorkers. This was not going to happen. Hitting $5,125 in Manhattan. Citywide median of roughly $3,585. California and New York are essentially on par, on track to becoming more and more unaffordable. And so you go back just a couple of months when Mamdani appoints this woman, Sia Weaver, for tenant office. They're moving in the direction of removing private property and making it available, well, rather seizing this private property. And instead of an individual good, a collective. They want to move to a collective good. Sounds great, doesn't it? Collective. Let's all be a collective. Let's all get together. We can all have a share in this wonderful economy. That's not how it works. That's not how the framers established the United States under a capitalist mindset, under a capitalist idea, capitalist way forward, rather than a socialist or a communist way forward. This is Sia Weaver.
I think the reality is that for centuries, we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good. And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently. And it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
And so the same data, the same talking points that Zoran did during his campaign, talking about the white families, that they want to tax the white neighborhoods, the rich white neighborhoods. Mamdani got backlash, and he was even challenged on this. We saw this on NBC, where he was asked by a reporter concerning this data point that he put on his website, that he would tax white neighborhoods. And he says, well, it's not really what I mean. Well, that's exactly what he means. Because they're making more money, we want to tax them more. We want to tax them out into oblivion. And you see that he's slowly taking action, pushing the Overton window slowly but surely to eventually attain what he wants, what he needs to sort of fulfill his promises. Promises made, none kept. This is one of his speeches that he did, called Block by Block, talking about the necessary action they will take, legal action, against negligent owners and property managers. This is where New York is headed. It's headed down a dark path.
When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards. Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits, or even the tenants themselves.
And so we've asked this question on the show. How do we expect the tenants themselves to pay for a property that they can't even afford? How does that make any sense? Do we expect there to be a rich millionaire or billionaire who's able to take over this property? I mean, what are the details here? It all sounds sort of a little too good to be true, in a sense, because you're talking about taking away private property. When you take away private property, when you don't own anything, now you're reliant on the government to give you what you need. And it no longer becomes the capitalist society where you can gain on this. And of course, other people can gain as well. Yes, people can be greedy, but we've seen videos talking about these landowners, these property managers who are talking about how impossible it is to renovate a single bedroom unit. You're talking upwards of $100,000 because of the rules and regulations that they have to follow in order to upgrade said unit, in order to be and reach the standard. And if they can't reach that standard, because simply New York is making it impossible for them to stay to that standard, it's because of the leadership and this is exactly how they will seek to remove private property. Drive out. They will drive out. They'll seek to drive out those who live in New York City. Democratic socialists will only make it more impossible to live there. It's the same thing that we have here in California. You make it too expensive to leave. You charge an exit tax, which many states are floating around that they want to do. California being one of them. You cause people to stay. You force them to pay because they can't leave. And eventually they become poor. They have to rely on the government. The government will give them all these wonderful so-called free when it's on the taxpayer dollar. Promises made, none kept. This goes back to the WEF statement. You will own nothing and be happy. Thank you, Dead Man Lives, for pointing that out. When Republicans are in power, they will not exercise their power to the fullest potential. When the Democrats want something, they get it. They want to take down a previous sitting president, done. Indict him on bogus charges. They want to import the third world, done. Open up the borders. Become the third world. They want to destroy America, done. Let's elevate the so-called democratic socialists who hate this country. There is a fundamental failure to wield political power, political and institutional authority effectively when they hold office. This is some of the Republicans that we see today. Republicans in office in California, in office in New York, you name it. Whether as governor, Congress, mayor, attorney general. God governs in the affairs of man, a direct quote from Ben Franklin. Now, there are many biblical examples of great leaders and bad ones. But when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And when the wicked rule, the people groan. And California's one-party rule takes the cake among all states, at least I think for now. Fraud, scam, deception. We will put people in this position to do exactly, to actually do the job. Will we put people to do the job that we want them to do in order to make California affordable, California livable, this golden state? And Bill Asalee, who's talking about some of the investigations that is happening within, this sort of Gavin Newsom camp. And we're going to get into some of the details right now. But of course, we're witnessing a whole lot of fraud in California. Now, he was asked a question. His wife was asked a question about these investigations. And, she completely avoids this question. Gavin Newsom has to step in. It's very terrible response, to say the least, but this is what he responds.
We heard from the governor, but we haven't heard from you yet about this investigation. What do you want to say?
I'm just so grateful for this inspiration and leadership. We need more of this.
Hey, this is stuff that happens in other countries. That's all I'll say. Happens in other countries. Who wants to go after me, go after me.
It's nice to see both of you. Madam First Lady.
So he's saying that this is third world type political attacks. And as we said, Bill Asalee, we're going to look at a clip from him in a moment, talking about some of the stuff that they're actually investigating. But a number of investigations are being conducted in California. And with Gavin Newsom, he says that Trump is out to get him. Goes on a press conference and says, Trump is out to get me. Political violence, political motivations here to take me down. You're all bending the knee. Buy my, Trump knee pads or whatever, so you can bow down to your idol. But these investigations happened a year prior. And they're actually not initiated by the DOJ, by the Trump DOJ. So what is this about? Sort of what kind of political motivation are we seeing here? Is it actually accountability that we're seeing? And Gavin Newsom, he's very, he doesn't like accountability. He doesn't like people investigating, doesn't want people looking. Voter rolls, Medi-Cal fraud, hospice fraud, election fraud. This is what we saw over the last couple of weeks. Jennifer Seibel Newsom's finances and tax nonprofits connected to Seibel Newsom, issues connected to former Newsom chief of staff, Dana Williamson, who previously pled guilty to fraud-related charges, whistleblower complaints that reportedly originated in California's federal offices. Do Californians really want change?
Well, look, I think that mail ballots are the biggest challenge here in California. They're unsecured. You have live ballots, millions of them being mailed out every election. California does not have clean voter rolls, so you're going to get a ballot whether you're dead or alive, whether you still live there or not. They're handing ballots out in the mail to everybody. And so when you have live ballots out in circulation, there are major concerns about who's handling those ballots, who's completing those ballots, and who's turning them in. So the universal vote by mail legislation that kicked in California about 2020 has been a big problem, and it's the reason why you see our elections taking so long to even count, because most of the ballots aren't even delivered until after Election Day. They do claim they have to be postmarked by Election Day, but the post office has up to 7 days after the election to deliver those ballots. And what the Supreme Court is looking at right now is, what does the term election day mean under the Constitution, under federal law? And it seems the justices are leaning towards it being that, just a day, election day, meaning all ballots must be received by the registrar of voters when the polls close on election day. So if the court does go in that direction, that's going to have a massive, massive impact on the way California conducts its elections.
Now, look, I understand your sentiment here. You say Warsaw, Greg. You say you guys need to get over it and come together instead of being divided. Look, as nice and as happy as that sounds, the reality of it is truth will prevail. Truth must prevail. Because if truth doesn't prevail in simple issues such as elections, such as Medi-Cal, such as hospice, homelessness, we're eventually going to continue down this same path. Democrats don't want to come together. They want to keep themselves in power. See, the left understands power. They understand how to get it. They understand how to keep it. They know how to keep it, how to use it to punish their enemies and reward their friends. Again, look at Virginia governor. Republicans suffer from absolute deficit of the will to power. They're terrified of being called racist names by the media. When they are given a gavel, when they are given authority, instead of using it to crush the opposition or defund the bureaucracy, they use it to write press releases and schedule hearings that go nowhere. Again, we see this example in California. Look at polling. Not that we take polling so seriously, but it gives us an indication as to what people are thinking, how people are feeling. And you see 52%, this is according to Emerson polling, 52% of Californians believe it is going in a bad direction. California should immediately follow up with changing it. When California lawmakers pass bills preventing independent journalists to investigate thoroughly, they can cover their tracks, threaten with lawsuits, bankrupt their opponents. I want to know your thoughts. Email me, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. When we go back just a couple of years, we remember 2020. This sort of seems like a marking point. A point where society turned really down a dark path. And we saw the power that was held by a singular figure by the name of Dr. Anthony Fauci. Someone who still seems to have incredible immunity, able to avoid, or rather to evade the law. Tulsi's latest on exposing Fauci should be a moment when we take action immediately. Now, look, lawfare is not on pace with social media. There needs to be ways to tackle this head on, and I think this is where AI is going into a direction that if society, it's inevitable. If society doesn't go in the direction that AI is expanding as fast as it is, if society doesn't catch up, it's going to be behind. You're going to get lost in the dust. And so how AI is being implemented within these law firms, within government agencies, that they're teaching people how to use AI, that it should speed up these processes. Now, of course, when it comes to justice, we want to be thorough. We want to make sure that we give everybody a fair trial. Presumed innocent until proven guilty. Now, if California says nothing is going on, present the evidence. We have the right to petition the government. This is our free speech. This is our First Amendment. If we think California is involved in some type of fraudulent activity, present the evidence to show otherwise. This is about checks and balances. This goes for all states, all branches of government. And so let's play this tape, Dr. Anthony Fauci in pursuit of universal vaccines and how he tried to cover it up.
Fauci working to suppress the truth about all of his actions, about the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused countless lost lives.
The correspondence released today directly contradicts Fauci's 2024 testimony to the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. In that hearing, while under oath, Fauci was repeatedly asked whether he spoke to FBI, CIA, DIA, or any U.S. intelligence concerning viral research before, during, or after the pandemic. Fauci repeatedly dodged the questions before falsely stating, quote, "not to my knowledge about COVID," end quote. The retaliation against those who were seeking truth, even online spaces, Facebook, Meta took action, YouTube took action, Twitter took action. This was prior to Elon Musk owning what is now called X. Testimony from multiple whistleblowers reveals intelligence analysts who challenge Fauci's COVID origin conclusions faced threats of retaliation, were marginalized, and often suffered career setbacks. The silenced dissent and fostered a culture where truth was sacrificed to conformity and credible evidence was buried. So even though Anthony Fauci was pardoned, could we challenge the legitimacy of the AutoPen and finally hold him accountable? The irresponsible. We remember how physicians, doctors who were, medical practitioners who were prescribing ivermectin, and they were threatened that they would lose their job for providing said medicine. These were horse dewormers. When in reality, there was a positive and a data to back up the fact that this would have helped many COVID patients. And instead, they were demonized. This is Tulsi Gabbard when she talked about these just before leaving office. This is what she's releasing. Never before seen communications documents exposing Anthony Fauci. Should we even call him doctor anymore?
Now, these documents expose Fauci's direct role in influencing and manipulating IC assessments on COVID-19 and how Fauci lied to Congress in 2024 when under oath he denied knowledge of or participation in discussions with intelligence officials about viral research. We also received testimony from multiple intelligence community whistleblowers who reported retaliation for challenging the intelligence community's manipulation of intelligence on the virus's origins, once again revealing a clear pattern of suppressing dissent, silencing critics, and burying the truth. Dr. Fauci's close relationships with the intelligence community enabled him to assume three key roles that shield him from scrutiny. First, Dr. Fauci funded dangerous gain-of-function coronavirus research linked to Big Pharma and their pursuit of universal vaccines. worth trillions of dollars. Second, Dr. Fauci was the behind-the-scenes advisor who, alongside his hand-picked so-called experts, pushed the intelligence community to endorse a natural animal origin to hide his dangerous gain-of-function research that he funded using taxpayer dollars, all of this in a deliberate attempt to cover up the truth and shift the blame and attention away from Fauci's own actions. Third, Dr. Fauci became the nation's pandemic pundit, and he publicly pushed lies, disinformation, and censorship using every platform available. Now, according to hundreds of reviewed emails, which are included in this release, the intelligence community almost always incorporated Fauci's recommendations. He promoted a fraudulent paper whose publication he helped prompt as legitimate information for intelligence community consideration. Senior analysts praised Dr. Fauci not as a policymaker, but as what they called an unbiased guide to the real coronavirus experts, while deliberately ignoring experts who might dissent from Fauci's narratives. Now, Fauci didn't stop there. He blatantly lied to Congress under oath during his 2024 testimony to the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, denying that he ever spoke to any intelligence agency about COVID. Now, the correspondence I'm releasing today directly contradicts his sworn testimony. Now, we received statements from multiple whistleblowers revealing that the intelligence analysts who dared to challenge Dr. Fauci's COVID origin conclusions faced threats of retaliation, marginalization, and many suffered career setbacks.
I want to know your thoughts. Email me, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. As we close up the show, I want you guys to look back at what we've gone through as a nation. If you are here, you're living in America, you understand that this is not a democracy. This is indeed a republic form of government. God most certainly governs in the affairs of man, and we see the way that society is moving. We are looking, I think, America, the majority of Americans want accountability for what happened under the Biden administration. The failed policies, the failed promises, and the ways in which they opened our borders to completely destroy America. There is a reason why we talk about these issues. There's a reason why we go and try to dig deeper into what we see in these scenarios. God governs in the affairs of men. Let's not forget that. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. God bless you for joining me today. If you've appreciated anything that you've heard here discussed in the chat with other like-minded or maybe those who disagree, I appreciate your wonderful candor in the chats, even if some aren't friendly. It's all debate. It's all up for discussion. You can always email me, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast, like the show, share with your friends. Let's just get our hands and feet wet into this mess to find and eventually reach accountability for the ways in which they completely destroyed the American economy under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. How we almost elected, yet Kamala Harris and the fraudster in Minnesota, Tim Walz. Didn't America dodge a bullet? 100%. God bless you. God bless America. See you guys in the next one. Peace.